Hello again. If you heard my last two messages that I posted that were longer, you'll know that one was about living out a life that displays the justice and the mercy and the goodness of God in our day. And then the second was specifically applying that to economic uh, situations in our day and how to address inequality, people being exploited in an economic sense. How do we live as people of the kingdom of God in our day, in our time, in our generation, when we are confronted by problems like inequality economically and also racism. Now, today I'd like to try to bring those two together as we look in the New Testament, as we consider the ministry of Jesus himself. Jesus preached the good news of the kingdom of God's reign within a person's heart that will spread out into the world. He preached that message to both the rich and the poor. He preached it to the rulers and the ruled. He preached it to those who were exploiting others and those who were being exploited. Everyone came in the scope of his teaching. Specifically, when he first announced his ministry in one of the synagogues, he opened the scroll from Isaiah the prophet, and one of the things that he read from there is, "The Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord." And he went about doing that. We know that. Many of the people who followed him probably would be classified as the lower level of society economically. We can just get a general feel for that as we read the scriptures. But today I want to look specifically at one man that Jesus preached this good news to and showed in his person what the kingdom of God is like, to the point that this man changed his mind. That's what we're looking for in our day. We need people to change their mind. We first start with ourselves. If there's anything within us that looks at other people in a way that God does not see them, then we need to change the way we look at them to conform to God's purpose in our lives. So this is in Luke chapter 19. Beginning in verse 1. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Okay, so the stage is set for this specific individual. He was a chief tax collector. He was looked down upon by both the common people who were being exploited by him as a representative of the Roman government, taking taxes, and then above what was lawful for them to take. It was known that these tax collectors would extort money from people. They would take extra taxes. Not only was he a tax collector, he was a chief tax collector. So he had authority, more authority behind him than the average tax collector did. And it says specifically he was wealthy. Okay? And so this is the man that Jesus confronted on this particular day. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. So whatever the man's motivation, maybe you'd heard about Jesus, he'd heard from other people secondhand what Jesus had been doing and what he'd been saying, and it aroused some curiosity in him. So at least he wanted to see Jesus. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So Jesus focused on this individual. Remember, he's of the ruling class economically. He's an exploiter of the people, and he's not popular. He's looked down upon, not just by the common people, but even by the religious establishment of the day. This class of person was considered sinners. They were looked down upon and not welcomed into the inner circle of Jewish religious life. So Jesus focused on him. His purpose that day was to be with Zacchaeus and to give Zacchaeus an opportunity to change when he met him. And what was Zacchaeus' response? So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. And now welcoming Jesus was not something that would make life easier for you. It was not something that would give you status in that day. The ruling religious leaders of the day were opposed to Jesus and his ministry. And so if people chose to follow Jesus or welcome him, then it was highly likely that they would be ostracized. So welcoming Jesus was not an easy thing to do. And also welcoming Jesus from whatever he saw or heard of Jesus before Jesus passed by and came to him and talked to him, he would have known that this would be a challenge to him personally. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He is gone to be the guest of a sinner." So we see the opposition from the common person. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Okay. So here is a tax collector who had been living in a selfish way. He'd been doing his job, but then he'd been using his position to exploit others. Here is a 180-degree turn. This man has changed his way of thinking just by being with Jesus and hearing Jesus' words and knowing Jesus there face to face with him personally. This man has changed his way of looking at things, and that has changed then his actions and what he would do about it. Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost." Jesus came to seek and to save both the poor and the rich, the exploited and the exploiters. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and all equally need the salvation that comes through Jesus alone. In Zacchaeus' case, the wealthy man, the exploiter, he met Jesus. He welcomed him gladly, and then he changed his allegiance. He changed his thinking. He changed his focus. He changed his purpose in life. And now the man who was taking from others was now generously giving back. He would make it right. What he had done wrong, he would make it right first. But then over and above that, he would give of his resources and redistribute them to those in need around him. Brothers and sisters, let's take that word today and ask the Lord how we should apply it in our lives personally, and then out into the world to see the kingdom come in our day.